Well, it's noon here in Ventnor City, New Jersey, and Bethesda, Maryland, and this is news that you can use for, well, Thursday, May 4th, the day before Cinco de Mayo, everybody. We'll be trashed on tomorrow's show, I can assure you. Uh, this is your hosts, Ray and Zach, and we've got a special show today. We're going to take a deep dive into the ugly truth about Ford.
And how they shocked the auto industry, or should I say
did
shocked
indeed. Yes,
the auto
yes,
industry.
yes,
Pops, we
yes.
have a special guest every once in a while, like you had yesterday with Brandon from Car Questions Answered. We get some real experts on the show. I hear a knock at the door, but maybe it's just on my end. Pops, let me bring him in. We've got Farzad Mesbahi, excuse me, Farzad. Farzad's got an incredible YouTube channel, an incredible Twitter following, so please check out the links in the top of the description. Farzad, thanks for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. Really excited. I should have brought some margaritas. You got me all excited about Cinco de Mayo, man. I should be trashed right now.
yeah. Well, you might want to join us tomorrow. We can all get trashed together.
Let's party.
Yeah, we'll be good.
I think my favorite part about this is the fact that neither my dad or I really drink at all. But Farzad, you can lead the charge there. So let's kick things off, guys. If you are not following Farzad, he's got his handle right down there in his name, again on Twitter and here on YouTube. You tore apart the latest quarterly earnings from Ford, and there are so many different pieces to talk about. If it's okay with both of you, gentlemen, I want to start with the storyline that I see you tweeting about, and obviously I think you know, Farzad, I'm incredibly passionate about, which is the fact that we have the day's supply of vehicles from Ford continuing to go up, up, up. And if it's okay with you, gentlemen, let's start there, and then we'll navigate in a variety of different directions. Okay, so here's the deal, guys. Not all Ford products are sitting forever. So for example, if I go to CarEdge and I look for a transit van, I think we all know transit vans are really hot, really in supply. There's a 51 days supply of Ford transit vans here in the Washington, D.C. area. So that means like there's enough, right? Like there's still a lot of demand. There's been 287 that are for sale, 252 have sold in the last 45 days. But then you start to look at some different vehicles from Ford. So, for example, a Mustang. You've got a 2023 Mustang. Well, then the day's supply goes up a little bit. It's 78. There's 81 for sale here in the DC area, and 47 have sold in the last 45 days. Then you look maybe Mustang, it's an outlier. That's why the day supply is up. Well, let's look at an Expedition. Well, actually, the day supply keeps going up. It's 106. There's 162 for sale. There's 69 that have sold in the last 45 days. And then last but not least, we keep harping on it, but $70,000 trucks are the new norm. There's a 220-day supply, 522 here for sale in the Washington, D.C. area, but only 107 have sold in the last 45 days. Farzad, I'll toss it to you. What do you make of this information, especially in the context of Ford's most recent quarterly earnings?
Yeah, it's quite fascinating. So one of the things I've started to do lately is really digging into the different quarterly financial reports from all the legacy automakers. And it seems like Ford has been able to offload a lot of their inventory from their factories onto dealers for the last few quarters, which has allowed them to report really good earnings. So in context versus what they reported during the COVID pandemic, you've seen sort of an increase in profitability. And now that we're kind of coming to a tail end of that happening. I think they're still reporting good earnings, but now you're starting to see this dynamic from the dealership perspective where the inventories are getting significantly above healthy levels, especially for pickup trucks, which based on Ford's earnings is their most profitable product. So now you have this dynamic where Ford has been making pickup trucks. They're reporting good earnings, but I think they're going to run out of places to put them. So it's going to be really fascinating to see how Ford navigates the rest of the year from that perspective. I mean, two things have to happen, in my opinion, and I would love to hear your thoughts. One, either Ford has to throttle production on pickup trucks, which is going to impact their profitability, or they're going to have to significantly help dealers lower their prices so that they can start selling them in droves. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to put them anywhere. You also have to think about a pickup truck. It's just a bigger form factor of a car, so it takes up more square footage per space on the parking lot. So you're really incentivized to move these things as quickly as humanly possible. That's my take so far. I'd be curious to hear where you guys are at.
Well, the interesting thing is Ford starts to cost Ford money once their dealers actually sell the vehicles. Ford's greatest profit is the day that they wholesaled it to their dealer body. And then when the dealer sells it, Well, that's when the warranty clock starts running. And well, we know from experience that there is no manufacturer that has more recalls than Ford does. Well, recalls cost money. The that starts to eat into their profit on their vehicles. And I agree with you. The only way that they're going to be able to solve the issue of too many pickup trucks is to either increase the incentives to the public significantly, and I mean significantly, $3, $4, $5,000 per truck, or they're going to have to throttle back production, much like General Motors did recently at their Fort Wayne plant, where they produced the Silverado and the Sierra pickup trucks. So, yeah, many of the manufacturers, and particularly Ford with the pickup trucks, are finding themselves in a situation where the demand isn't nearly what they thought it was going to be or what they had hoped for it to be.
Yeah, and you also have to think about the fact that Ford for a long time had reservation lists going out the wazoo. There were people just waiting for cars. And then what happens? We recently did some research. People are walking away from those reservations. And so you have dealers that are now sitting on this inventory. There's other people on YouTube. Brandon does a good job of this. He goes to dealerships. He films the fact that there are rows of cars. I mean, so you don't have to look that far to see what you were describing, Farzad, which is there are tons of vehicles, tons of $100,000 pickup trucks just sitting around now. And sure, it makes Ford's earnings look good, like you said. But what happens downstream? The dealer, Pops, you talk about this all the time. The OEM to dealer relationship just gets even more difficult. There's more friction there. And all the while, the other dynamic in the market that is a force against Ford, I would think, would be the competitors who, I don't know, like Tesla, that don't have a dealership model, that are profitable when they're selling their vehicles, unlike Ford with their EVs. There's just so many, I'm going to use the word headwinds, so many headwinds that I feel like this business faces. And some of them are self-inflicted. I pulled up the NHTSA data as you were talking about it, Pops. Chrysler is trying their best, Stellantis is trying their best to catch up to Ford in terms of recalls, but they're still not there. So Farzad, what are you looking for over the next couple of quarters when it comes to Ford to see if, you think they're bouncing back or if they're kind of continuing to go, I'm going to say, in a downward direction?
I mean, that's the $1 trillion question, I guess, because it is quite significant. I think the way you've sort of outlined it is very accurate. There are multiple headwinds. You have an economy that's clearly slowing around the higher priced vehicles. Ford is struggling to sell its most profitable product, mostly due to pricing, I would say. But really, the question becomes, the money's got to come from somewhere. So who's going to take the hit when they do decide to lower the prices? I'm guessing Ford's going to have to take a financial impact, some sort of hit, to be able to fund the dealerships, because we know the dealerships are stuck with inventory that's significantly above market value. And so I don't know where they're going to come up with the money to be able to fund those. And if you guys have any insight there, I'd love to hear. So that's one thing. And then the EVs. It's something that Ford has been trying to transition towards for the last couple of years with the Mach-E and the Lightning, but it's a big money losing business for them right now, and they have to figure out how to increase their profitability. I'm sure we'll get into that as well. And then the third factor, which actually just broke yesterday, the UAW, which is the United Auto Workers Union, which Ford, Stellantis, and GM they're partnered with. They really drive their factory workers. They just came out yesterday and sort of against some of the EV policies that the U.S. government has been putting forth, which puts a company like Ford in a little bit of a hard spot, because it's already hard enough and too expensive for them to build the EVs now. And now you have the UAW, their primary labor force, saying, hey, we're not on board, so you're probably going to have to increase our pay to be able to transition, or give us some guarantees, which is going to obviously increase the cost for Ford even further, which means even more expensive EVs potentially. So there's just a lot, man. There's a lot. It's a very tough spot for Ford. I do like Jim Farley as a leader. I really do. I think he's more forward looking than most, but execution is a whole different story. And that's what I'm looking for, is like, if you're going to say something, let's see if you can actually do it.
Farzad, you touched on something that I noticed yesterday when I looked at the earnings, and that is that Ford lost $722 million on electric vehicle sales in the last quarter. And they anticipate for the year to lose $3 billion on the sales of their electric vehicles. And the number that I heard is that it costs them approximately $60,000 in losses for every EV that's sold. And I joke, well, how do you make that up? Well, you make it up in volume, but that doesn't really work. At a certain point, I understand that Ford Blue and Ford Pro, which is their commercial division, and their ICE divisions, are what is going to underwrite EVs moving forward. But how? And I know they've got $29 billion cash on hand and $41 billion in liquidity. But how long can you continue to lose that type of money on every EV that you sell when your major competitor, Tesla, keeps, I don't know, lowering the prices? And you got to believe that the only reason Elon Musk is lowering the prices is to stick it to the legacy manufacturers that are trying to come after him.
Yeah, it's fascinating commentary. I mean, so what you just described is there's a book called The Innovator's Dilemma that came out a long time ago and sort of describes this dynamic. So it uses examples like Nokia, BlackBerry, Xerox, and all these other companies that were sort of entrenched in this way of running a business, and then sort of an innovation or a new way of doing something came through, and it put those companies in a very tough spot. They're like, okay, so this whole thing, this new thing, let's assume Tesla and EVs do eventually become the new form of transportation. These legacy automakers are like, well, that's not really in our wheelhouse. We have to figure out how to shift. But the shifting is so hard and so expensive and so difficult for them that it actually causes them to go out of business over time. And I think Ford is starting to experience this. Scale will be very important for Ford to get profitable, but I'm talking millions of EVs per year that are made in a very cost-effective manner that the dealerships want to sell, and that the UAW won't be in the way from a cost perspective and creating chaos when it comes to negotiations as well. Not to mention that, are people even going to want to buy an EV for Ford in the millions of units per year, right? So there's a lot of complications that they're facing. And one of the comments that was made on the earnings call with Ford was that Ford is not going to go with a growth at all costs strategy around EVs. They want to be very strategic, which to me sounds like they want to be very picky and choosy in what markets they want to enter, which to me sounds like higher price EVs, which is not, to me, is not mass market, which means that Ford could go from a 4 million a year automaker to a 1 million a year automaker, especially if gas car vehicles get phased out over time. It's a very hard spot.
This is also the talking out of both sides of your mouth, as they say that they lower the price of the Mach-E by $4,000. So it's like,
sure,
what am I doing today? Yeah. What am I doing tomorrow? It'll be interesting to see what actually plays out over the next couple of years. Another factor, another headwind would be the dealer, the fact that there's franchise dealers. And there was an interesting tweet from Car Dealership Guy, who it would be great to get him. Did we have Car Dealership Guy on the show one time, Pops? I forget if we've had him on.
I
think we did way back when. Way back.
I know
when.
We interviewed him.
Before he was famous, Dad. Before he was famous. All right.
Well,
just
before we were famous.
He's great. He's a really good account. I follow him all the time. Truly.
So here's a tweet from CDG. Recorded a great, I don't know, monstrous just sounds weird. Recorded a great podcast episode today with a big car dealer has acquired 15 franchise dealerships. Interestingly, he said the brand he refuses to acquire is Ford. His reasoning, Ford's leadership has severely breached trust with dealers. Quote, why put your hard-earned money behind leadership that wants to bypass you? We can argue all day if he's right or wrong, but one thing is for sure. If he thinks this way, you can betcha other dealers are feeling the same. And here's the thing. His perspective isn't even contrarian. The data also supports it. Kerrigan Advisors recently reported that dealer demand for Ford stores is declining. So is it time for Ford to rethink its strategic direction? I find this to be a super fascinating tweet. I can't wait to listen to that episode of the CDG podcast. And no, I'm not just fishing for an invite to get on there. It's really good content. That's another headwind that this business faces is we are, and in fact, Guy in the Kitchen has the comment here. Jim Farley has also expressed wanting to get away from the dealership model several times. I'm wondering how much of that is because of tension over that. Guys, we saw dealers, Ford dealers in particular, treating customers in a really not great way, taking advantage of what the market conditions were. this is something that Ford has to reckon with as well. They were the ones that came out boldly last year, Farzad, and set up 2 business units so that they could really pursue an agency model or direct-to-consumer model. How do you think about that impacting the future of Ford as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the dealership network was a great model back in the early 1900s, maybe mid 1900s, when there was a lot of customer abuse. They were trying to protect the customer from the manufacturer taking advantage of them. And that's why the dealership network was introduced, so that it kind of like even out the playing field, and then you have sort of third-party access to service. But in my opinion, I mean, you guys are more than welcome to sort of voice yours, but I feel like this is sort of felt by a lot of people. Dealerships have now become the parties that are sort of screwing people over. They price gouge in a lot of places, and a lot of folks are just not happy with the dealership experience. And so what Ford is trying to do, they're trying to say, hey, we're trying to move away from that model so we can have a direct relationship with the customer while selling our cars, very similar to the Tesla model, which is exactly what they do. The question becomes, is the dealership lobby going to allow them to do it? And is Ford going to be able to actually execute as with a direct-to-consumer model, where they can sort of do what Tesla does, which is try to keep prices as static as possible? And in the case where you're sort of passing on price decreases, you pass it on to absolutely everybody and be very transparent, and essentially get rid of internalize the service network as well, because that would be another thing you have to do, is bring the service network internally if you really want to sort of follow that similar type of model. Or you might just be stuck in a place where dealers, you're going to have to convince dealers to sell your EVs and to be partnered with you. And we know EVs have less maintenance overall, and it brings less money in the tail end for the dealership versus a gas car. So to me, it doesn't seem like the incentives are aligned for Ford to execute this cleanly. It's going to be a huge mess. And it's going to be fascinating to watch play out for sure.
I will assure you that the dealership lobby is large enough and well financed enough to never acquiesce to what it is that Ford wants to do.
Yeah.
Franchise laws in the states protect the franchise dealerships in those states. They're not going to give that up. And if Ford is losing as much money selling EVs or building EVs, think of the added cost if they have to buy out their dealers in order to be able to go sell them direct. Ford has tried other manufacturers. They really don't want to be in the retail business. Okay. They much prefer to be in the wholesale business, which is what they're in. And so I think it's Jim Farley sending up a trial balloon. And so far, they have like anti-aircraft guns that are shooting down every trial balloon he sends up. It's not the way it's going to ultimately end up. The dealers have way too much power. They're not. They've got trillions of dollars invested in facilities. They're not going to give all that up. They're not giving that up without a fight. So I just don't see it happening. And I think it makes great PR to say this is the way we want to go, knowing full well when you're saying it, you're never really going that way.
It's interesting though, Pops, because you look at the data from that CDG tweet, and sure, it's great PR on the consumer front, but then it's terrible PR to your existing distribution network, which are the thousands of dealers. And last time I checked, who cares about the PR? Go try and buy a Ford. It's still a pain in the butt. I mean, there are good dealers and whatnot out there, but still, I mean.
And as far as that one dealer saying, well, they're not good partners. Ain't none of them good partners, because ain't none of them your partner. I will tell you, when times get tough for the manufacturers and they start getting stuck with the inventory, and then they force it down their dealers' throats, that, as I said to one of my general managers one time, I don't care that they want you to take them. I don't think we should. And the reason I don't think we should is at the end of the year, they're not going to stroke us a check to make us whole for the losses that we're going to incur for having carried all this extra inventory. A partner would do that for you. Somebody that's not really your partner and just looking to get rid of their own goods, they're just trying to stick it. There is not truly a partnership between dealerships and manufacturers. It's not. They'd like you to believe it is, but it's not.
Yeah, man. Like you said, Farzad, the next couple months, the next couple years, fascinating to watch. I mean, anyone who I appreciate your conviction, Dad. I really, really do. But anyone with conviction who can say this is exactly how it's going to play out, that's BS. Like there are so many dynamics at play here. And while I agree with a lot of what both of you are saying around specific pieces of it, to understand what the actual outcome will be for the market in general, it's impossible. It's impossible to. No soothsayer is going to get that right. However, if folks do want really incredible insights into this, go follow Farzad. He's got an awesome YouTube channel. He's got a great Twitter presence as well. The data that you're putting out there, Farzad, is top notch. Share a little bit about what you're trying to do between YouTube and Twitter, and then we'll give you some time back in the day. It's greatly appreciated that you joined us. But give everyone a little overview about who you are and what you're up to.
Of course. Thanks, brother. Yeah. So I run a YouTube channel and a Twitter. I primarily cover the electric vehicle segment, but I've really been covering legacy automakers as well. I'm really fascinated about the transition to electric vehicles. And I've sort of been following this market for a long time, for over 10 years. But I'm a huge car guy too. I freaking love cars. I grew up, playing Gran Turismo 24/7. I just love cars. But I think there's something in the air. There's something in the air. Something's happening. And somebody that's been following EVs a long time. I'm just fascinated to see what happens. So if you want to follow me on my Twitter, on my YouTube, you're more than welcome to. I try to be as unbiased as humanly possible. I did work at Tesla for over 4 years. I am a Tesla investor, but it's something that I always want to sort of make sure that I'm transparent about that. But I'm really trying to cover what's going on as openly as humanly possible. And I'm truly honored that you guys brought me on your channel. I love you guys. I watch you guys every day. And I can't wait to party with y'all tomorrow with some margaritas. Let's go.
Yeah.
We might turn that into an ad lib that we use on the show. Farzad, thanks so much for your time. Pops, if you want to give Farzad thanks, and then we'll continue on.
Absolutely, Farzad. You help us to make us look good. I spout crap every day.
I disagree.
You actually verify some of the crap that I spout, and I appreciate that.
I always got your back, man. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Farzad.
gentlemen.
All the best. It's always fun to get folks on the show. Thank you to Farzad. And yeah, obviously yesterday we had Brandon from Car Questions Answered. So it's awesome to get some folks outside the team to participate with us. Now, Pops, we've got to turn our attention to and I'll let you do the ad lib. Really, you got to be kidding me. This is what's the prize that you win for effective journalism for great journal? Pulitzer?
I think it's is it a Peabody or a Pulitzer?
Peabody, Pulitzer.
Yeah, Pulitzer, perhaps. Yeah, I think it's a Pulitzer. Yes.
All right, hit him with the Pops.
Really? You got to be kidding me.
All right, gang. So here's the deal. We haven't covered it on the show yet. Data is finally finishing its trickle in for April automotive sales.
Yes.
Market shifts back into higher gear in April. This is from Automotive News, the industry publication. U.S. sales advanced 10% in April, with fleet driving most of the gain again as inventories continue to recover. Now, Pops, before we dig into it, how could this possibly be the real? You got to be kidding me. What could possibly drive that?
Well, the reason it's a really you got to be kidding me is the headline says, my God, things are really going great. When in reality, retail sales ain't doing much at all. And the reason I say that is 296,000 vehicles that were sold were actually fleet sales. They represented more than 1 in 5 of all the vehicles that were sold in April. That's a crazy number. That indicates to me that as much as we'd like to think that things are in high gear, not for the major buyers out there, the regular customers and consumers out there, those people are either staying away or are stagnating at the numbers at which they're buying. And it's finally commercial fleets, rental companies, governmental fleets, that they can now get the vehicles that they've ordered God knows how many years ago. But it ain't what that headline suggests. So yeah, they might get an award for the most creative headline for the year.
Market shifts back into higher gear. Yeah, and
Yeah.
we've been following the fleet. Fleet sales aren't sexy. Let's be real. Fleet sales are boring. So fascinating though, because fleet vehicles are going to be your lower profit margin vehicles, and fleet
Yes.
vehicles were the ones that took a huge hit during the COVID pandemic and the chip shortage and all that fun stuff. And for months now, we've seen fleet sales significantly increase year over year.
Yes.
And now fleet sales making up more than 1 in 5 new vehicles sold last quarter.
Last month.
Last month, excuse me.
Yeah.
I mean, what stronger indication do you need that the market's not actually as strong as you think it is, and all those $100,000 trucks sitting around, they're gonna be sitting around a little bit longer. The really, you got to be kidding me here, is truly the spin on that data, and I would not be surprised if mainstream media outside of the industry publication picked this up as car sales starting to bounce back in April. They are not, folks. They are absolutely not.
Yeah, this is where you have to read well below the headline to understand what's really going on. And I get that Automotive News is an industry publication now, and so perhaps because they're an industry publication, they feel compelled to try and paint a better picture of what's going on in the industry, but it's not an accurate picture. It just isn't. When more than a fifth of the vehicles being sold are going to fleet as opposed to retail customers, at a certain point, when the fleets are completely filled again, then what happens? Okay.
And let's put this in a little bit of context, Dad, because it really, I mean, we're not full of BS, guys. This is the data from February of this year, okay? The headline over at Cox Summit, February fleet sales surge.
Yes.
They were up 48% year over year. Let's round up, 184,000 vehicles sold to fleet in February of this year. Okay, what about March? March fleet sales increase again. Okay, where were we in March? Well, we were up 27.7% year over year. We sold 225,000.
Yes.
And again, what did we do in April? Almost 300,000 vehicles being sold to fleets. So it's not just us sitting here. It's those doggone headlines saying auto market strong, auto market robust. No. We've nearly doubled the amount of vehicles sold in fleets in 60 days. What more clear side do you need that the market has changed? But hey, if I was in their shoes too, I'd be digging my heels in. I get it.
They're just trying to paint a better picture, trying to indicate that things aren't really as bad as they might seem, when in reality they're probably worse.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right.
They're probably absolutely worse. And I think we will, once those fleet sales are completed, we're going to see such a slowdown in new vehicle sales on the retail side of things, not the fleet side of things, but on the retail side of things. And it's going to be staggering either how stagnant or what the decline is, because Fed raised rates again yesterday. Average transaction prices are still over $45,000. Average pickup truck transactions across the border are around $65,000. We have said it, it's not sustainable. The vast majority of people cannot afford to buy a new vehicle today. And the number of people who can, that number is shrinking. And the market continues to shrink because more and more people either find themselves unable to be in the market or they voluntarily take themselves out of the market.
Yeah, absolutely. We see it every single day. Friendly reminder, I know I've been hit or miss recently, so forgive me, but I got to give a throw. CarEdge.com. If we can help you, if you are one of those people, maybe your car got totaled recently or for whatever reason you need to purchase, let us help you buy a car. If you're thinking about trading or selling in a vehicle, please go to CarEdge.com/sell. Get multiple offers before you do. Finance, if you're going to purchase auto insurance, see if you can save money through our insurance agency. The extended warranty, still the cheapest and highest quality one out there as far as I'm aware. No BS, no crazy markups. You get to work with our team. You can chat with Kimberly. You can chat with Jennifer. You can chat with Phil. You can chat with Justice. You can chat with Jerry. all sorts of folks here behind the scenes that are simply trying to help. So please go check out CarEdge.com. We appreciate everyone who's a part of our community. We appreciate Farzad, and we will be back tomorrow, Pops, correct?
Well, I'm planning on being here tomorrow at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, 8 a.m. Alaska, 6 a.m. Hawaiian time, and midnight for all our fans in Manila. And I'll probably be here with either beer or margarita in hand, stuff on my face with chips. And okay, so I probably won't do any of that, but that's besides the point.
Maybe we'll run like a pop-up surprise Cinco de Mayo promo. Anyway,
I like that.
Stay tuned. Maybe tomorrow. All right, Pops, I love you very much. Thank you for holding down the fort this past week, and I will see you tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely. We'll see you all back here tomorrow, everybody. Thanks so much for being here.